Anis Nor is a professor of ethnochoreology and ethnomusicology at the University of Malaya in Kuala Lumpur. He's also the curator of the Zeppin International Dance Festival and the International Malay Performing Arts for the state government of Johor, which is a province in a state in Malaysia. And in addition to this, he was the 2007-2008 recipient or holder of the William Allen Nielsen Distinguished Professorship in Music, Dance, and Theater at Smith College in Northampton, Massachusetts. Today he'll be giving a talk on multiculturalism and interculturalism in Southeast Asian Islamic performing arts. So please join me in welcoming Professor Anis.
I will go straight to the presentation because of trying to cover everything I could in time given to me, and normally I would never ever to do that, but I'll try with my PowerPoint presentation. The reason for why I chose this topic in dealing with the issue of pluralism and democracy in Southeast Asian Islam is mainly because there is a worldwide confusion of the placement of the arts in performing arts in the Muslim world and also amongst Muslims. And I was reminded of this in Georgetown when I met professors coming from South Asia who were surprised to see some of the videos I showed. And they said, you know, they have never seen this before. You find people performing, women and men performing together, or women performing with jilbab in public. And in South Asia, it would be horrendous. It would be, you know. So my comment is very simple and easy. This is the very reason why this part of the world called Southeast Asia should be made known to the world, you know. And we in Southeast Asia have inherited so many traditions and so many religions and so many ways adapted to the filtration that we do in choosing the best everything. And in due course, we have produced some of the most interesting hybrid tradition in the world. But of course, who cares? So allow me now to put on my video PowerPoint, and if I know how to do this correctly. I just want to comment on the issue of diversity in Islamic world when you have so many people and you find that 1.2 billion Muslims in the world, 60% of them are in Asia, and 15% are Muslim of Arabs in the world. So there's a lot of confusion when you talk about Muslims, and this confusion led to various problems in the understanding of the Islamic culture in the world. I was again advised by my colleagues in Georgetown that the number of Muslims in India and Pakistan is no longer true as such, and apparently Pakistan has a slightly higher number than Muslim in India. Well, the demographer is a Pakistani, so I would rather leave it as that and make my corrections later. Now, Islam, as you know, briefly came to Southeast Asia with traders rather than through military conquest from about the 13th century. It came and overlaid on indigenous cultural systems through syncretic fusion of animistic and Indic Hindu-Buddhist elements, which were accommodated by royal courts and indigenous leaders during its early inception in Southeast Asia. This remains true, very powerful, very potent even today, and I'll tell you why. By the 17th century, Islam had spread to much of Southeast Asia. It has about 240 million, and I think the numbers keep on changing. It depends who's saying it from which country, but I'd rather pick something that has been printed, so this is what I got. Probably is now has changed again. But you see the numbers are quite staggering. Muslims in Southeast Asia belong to the Sunni tradition and follow Shafi'i school, and is more or less more moderate in characteristic due to the way Islam was brought to this region. I can't show that, but I'm putting this map just because I want to remind everyone that I'm talking from the perspective of maritime Southeast Asia. So we are talking about the Malay world, we are talking about the archipelagic world. Part of it, as Achan Chawat just mentioned, half of the Malay Peninsula, almost half of the Malay Peninsula, you know, that is now shared with Thailand, really represents that maritime world as well. So you have a very large number you're talking about here. So that's the world we are talking about. And I want to, if you can see on the very left-hand side, Sulawesi, the Kendari, that's one place I want to talk about, and also the Halmahera area, which is very rarely said about in the traditions. And what is then we ask is the Southeast Asian Islamic performing arts. Well, I tried to put together a few points so that we can do this reference now. One of which is it is not by itself a monolithic tradition. It is made up of various multiple influences from India, Persia, Middle East, Chinese, and all that, as well as inter-archipelagic borrowings, which means to say that the Malay world is never alone. There always is a continuous borrowing between the Malay worlds, and in numerous ways, this has brought forth with the connection of community traders and missionaries from India, Persia, and Middle East. And they brought all the ideas of philosophical ideas, scholastic theology, and even doctrinal Sufism. And doctrinal Sufism becomes very powerful in the spread of performing art in Southeast Asia, much as Sufism becomes very powerful in the Da'wah Islamiyah in South Asia when Islam spread to South Asia, but in quite different way, because Sufism that came from to Southeast Asia did not come from the Asian continent of India, but came actually from across from Hadramaut and so on. So what then becomes legitimate and legitimate in the eyes of the Muslim Southeast Asian of the arts, which is congruent to the belief that it is permissible in Islamic philosophy. It has to be categorically ranked. Either it is a mustahab, is commendable, whether it is mubah, indifferent, or merely permitted, on mandub, recommended, and as long as it is halal. As long as it is halal, the range of 1 to 10 remains halal. So you have to find ways to halal it in the other way. So there's a lot of tradition that is being in the process of halaling, trying to make it halal in spite of it was not halal. And that is very interesting how artists are making their art looks fall in the category of halal. Again, the very important notion of Tawheed, as in Islam, that is very crucial in the understanding. It has to have that central understanding. And then, of course, the Southeast Asian Islamic performing art are hybrids. They are reinvented performance traditions through syncretic processes, often eclectic and esoteric, with subtle overlaying of past practices. There's a lot of past practices. In Malaysia today, the contestation of the past and the present is getting a bit out of control, and I do not know what will happen after April when the Prime Minister Badawi steps down and Najib comes up, but it's very interesting happening there when fundamental Muslims do not want to talk about the past, they want to talk about the present as though the present comes out from an egg without chicken. So, and then you have the traditions that are associated with Sufism, Tasawwuf in South Asia. I want to stress this very, very importantly, which played an important role in the spread of Islam in the Malay archipelago since the 15th century. Examples are observed today, even today, in the performative traditions of the Tariqah Khadariyah, Naqshbandiyah, Shatariyah, Halwatiyah, Samaniyah, which are four main ones, and there are many minor ones, which are often associated with the literati within the circle of royals and palaces, meaning to say that even today, the practices of performative Naqshbandiyah is very, very, very real, but it is kept within the close quarters of the literati of royal houses. So we do not want to talk about it, but we are aware of it. So if you want to join them, might as well you join them, but you do not want to talk about it. But we can talk about it over coffee if you want. I can tell you more. Not here. For reasons you know why. Now, in the visual or performative arts, performativity here is state of utterance, which leads people to perform and act. It is either metaphorical or metonymic. This is very powerful, allegorical. It is not literal. It has a lot of double, triple layer meaning. You know what metaphor is, but metonym is something almost like the word sword representing military power. So a lot of allusion, a lot of allegorical work. So whether it's a movement name after certain thing, it does not literally mean what it is. It has to be understood in the context of its overlaying over many traditions. And of course, very importantly, and it is very closely related to the paper I'm saying, presentation, it displays multicultural, intercultural competency by the practitioners or beholders of the performance traditions, meaning to say the performers themselves do understand and do take it, doesn't take for granted that a tradition they're performing is purely something that is original, because the word original doesn't hold here because it comes from various layering. So what they are doing is extending the performative style or structure. But asli is original, authentic, is hardly being spoken about because it's very difficult when you say asli, when you say what is authentic. So I am introducing two words before we go any further to explain so that you may have an idea why I'm talking about these two issues of multiculturalism and interculturalism. These are buzzwords for many affirmative action plans in many countries that have large numbers of migrant population. Of course, you see this word often in many modern nation states, and this is the whole issue. The word is constructed to fit into the modern perception of society in the arts. Yet these words have shared many tribulations which are largely attributed to its magnanimous meanings and intention. Multiculturalism has many definitions, one of which is about public policy, approach for managing cultural diversity in a multi-ethnic and multilingual society, a state apparatus, again stress a state apparatus which is being used by the state, to develop mutual respect and tolerance for multiplicities of cultural differences within the borders of a nation states. And when a policy of multiculturalism is instituted by the state, it officially places importance on the unique characteristics of different cultures that are represented within the communities of a nationality or nation. The notion of multiculturalism broadly refers to societies or nations that have many distinct cultural groups, which usually come together as a result of immigration that can lead to anxiety about the stability of national identity, in spite of its ability to induce cultural exchanges in literature, arts, and dress, and so on. And this is true, especially true in Singapore. It's also true in Malaysia. And we are facing this continuous struggle to appropriate this meaning. As a policy, multiculturalism propagates that immigrants and others should preserve their cultures with the different cultures interacting peacefully within one nation. It idealizes the preservation of a cultural mosaic where separate cultural identities and ethnic groups are placed together harmoniously in a tolerant society, unlike a melting pot where all the immigrant cultures are mixed and amalgamated without state intervention. Interculturalism, on the other hand, philosophizes exchanges between cultural groups within a society. States may institute interculturalism as policies which seek to encourage the socialization of citizens of different ethnic origins as an instrument to fight racism and overcome prejudice against others. Interculturalism may also be a way of approaching things with an inherent openness to expose the cultures of the other for an ensuing dialogue, which becomes a very powerful tool in enhancing fusion of commonalities of cultures in constructing a new world culture. And this new world culture is also a system of developing performative cultures in Southeast Asia. In other words, interculturalism philosophizes harmony and accordance through interaction, merging and blending of cultures that differs from multiculturalism, which celebrates the differences and distinctiveness of cultures yet asserting their uniqueness. Now, so having heard the two words and having heard from me how the understanding of authenticity is negated by the fact that there's nothing really authentic. There's always a continuous belief that what you do today will eventually become a tradition if you pursue it. But the most important and significant contribution of East-West Passage, and this I'm trying to relate again to the influence of the Hadramis. Aji, you're working on this one, so help me if you have anything to add, is the Straits of Malacca passageway, which has brought really a very interesting phenomenon during the period of the opening of the Suez Canal, and that is the coming of the new group of Hadramis to Southeast Asia. But in due course, and it remains as today, the influence of the Hadramis significantly gave rise to a trend of the indigenous of trying to copy something from the Hadramis, because the indigenous population will never ever accepted into the Hadramis colony or the villages or the suburbs because it is very significantly Hadramis. And this have brought about a very creolized tradition, and this again the hybridity when Hadrami males marry into indigenous female and their sons and children are brought up brought up as Hadrami and not brought up as a Malay. And young sons of the mixed marriage are sent back normally to Hadramaut for some form of training, and the continuity of the Hadrami line goes on and on. But what happened is it allows then a window beyond the Hadrami community, a window to allow the indigenous Malay to enter the world of Hadrami without having to go through the front way, the front door. You kind of go into through the window because of these processes. And here is when I have a very important, a very nice tradition called Zapin, which I will not talk so much, but enough to say that Zapin is probably one of the most broadly spread tradition in the entire island world of Southeast Asia. And this is a result of the hybridity. Okay, now when you talk about the hybridity, eclectic fusion, and synchronicity in Southeast Asian Islamic performing arts, I personally would categorize it into two different categories. One is the eclectic fusion of indigenous practices, both colonial and transmigrant influences. We are talking about many things. We are talking about India, we are talking about China, we are talking about Austroasiatic Southeast Asia into the Austronesian Southeast Asia. We're talking all about that. And we do see this happening, and some of us are aware of this now. This is just a very short list, actually, is for the sake of signifying that this exists. The gamelan is a good example. The Calempong, which also a gong ensemble in Sumatra, Malaysia. Ghazal music and song, which is very, very highly regarded in Malay world, came from Persia and India, but it's not Persian, no, it's Indian. Dondang Sayang. Again, another very interesting tradition among the Straits-born Chinese, which eventually became a domain of the Malay Islamic community. Keroncong, we have Keroncong expert here. Keroncong is a good example. Again, Keroncong has evolved tremendously over the years, and sometimes you do not know whether it's really Keroncong or not. It's still Keroncong. You have Gambang Kromong, of course, the early 20th century Batawi music. This is the fusionistic, eclectic fusion. The syncretic hybrid one, as you can see, as I've said, is, for example, the Zapin, which is called Jipen, Zapin, Japan, depend on wherever. In Sulawesi, it's called very differently. And my last recent trip to North Sulawesi, I went to the island of Nine. The island of Nine is off in the Bunaken Marine Park. I was studying for the last 5 years with the Bajau Laut, the Tausuk, orang sama di laut. People, I mean, you call themselves by various names. I'm very interested to see at them the power of the Bajaus, because the Bajaus were the principal people who brought the Sultan's power into place. It's the Bajau that moved a regalia across oceans. So I found that for the first time after so many years of research that this island of Nine has a very powerful Hadrami influence of out of nowhere. And apparently we were able to trace it all the way to Palembang, you see, Badaruddin. So there's a connection with Palembang over hundreds of years from Palembang across the north and the Samat and the Talaut people and connecting to the Sulu Seas. It's very interesting. So, okay, I don't want to go into the idea beyond this, but suffice to say that the reason for why this tradition remains with Southeast Asian practitioners' Islamic tradition is because it has many similar qualities. The quality of abstractions, as I said, it's metonymic, it's metaphorical, it's metonymic. It is not literal. It's highly, highly stylistic, beyond stylization that one sees, which is still narratively translated. For example, you call a movement that depicts a dance movement that depicts a petal. In a very Indic tradition, you have a petal and you have the bees, and you have in the Malay tradition where the petal kind of disappears, the hand goes up flat, and then you think there's a petal. But when you come to the metonymic, metaphorical movement, there's nothing that you see as a petal. It really a shape of petal. There's no shape of petal, but you have to read the movement beyond the motifs. So the structure is that you cannot isolate one movement. You have to look into the total movement. This again goes to the arabesque, the connectivity of the arabesque, the conjunct and the disjunct arabesque. So you look into the figures, and therefore it is again very powerful. It's very powerful because it works very well into the zikir, the remembrance, especially in the silent zikir, which I'm doing now with the Sabandi. It's very, very powerful because when you do a musical tradition or a dance tradition, you just cannot analyze that we tend to analyze things, deconstruct it into units. You can't do that unit, because when you do that unit, you break the sequence. You have to look it into a larger configuration to understand whether it's a conjunct or disjunct arabesque. And that is, again, very revealing to me as I look into the performative arts of Southeast Asian Islamic societies everywhere, whether it is sound, whether it is movements, whether even it's painting, whether it is weaving, it is replicated in the same way. And this has more or less held the formation, the structure of the allegories and the metaphor very strongly. And I say here the mutasil mufasil, which is interesting. If you want to know more, there's a new publication coming out from the International Institute of Asian Studies in Amsterdam. They're coming out with a very nice book. I don't know whether, Judy, do you know this book on Austronesian soundscape? Have you heard about it? Oh, it's going to come out. So there's a very nice collection. Again, the whole idea of looking at soundscape and dancescape. So I've put one section of the soundscape, dancescape of the Malay world, because the Malay world, alam Melayu, the world of the Malay, is a world of psyche, not a world that is translated into plants and trees and mountains and rivers. It's beyond mountain and rivers. Again, very metaphonemic, so you have this replication into the performance art. So I won't go into this because I think I did this last time, but I want to show you something before I'm asked to get out of this place. Is my clock, my watch working or not? I do not know, but it's very fast. 5 or 6. I thought so. It's not working. Okay, I'm going to jump this just to show you the idea of what qualifies, again, very similar, what qualifies to the Islamic Southeast Asian performing art is it is abstract, it has a modular structure, it's improvisational, you can improvise on and on, you never stop, you never begin. It's the whole line that exists and transcended of God, there is no breaking, you can rest, but the rest is not a stop, It's divisional, it's successional, it's durational, ornamentation definitely, it must be repeated, it's symmetrical. It is very, very pre-postmodern, very, very, so. And then that I would go further to show you something which will be very interesting to you. You see, I just purposely make it long because if I need to talk for 2 hours, I can. Okay, here we go. This one I want to show is a very interesting art. This is very specific. This is the Hadrami tradition, which was brought to the Malay world, and is kept separately. You can still see this among the Arabs descent group in Southeast Asia. And this is a caption I brought from the Al-Hidayah group from Palembang. I mean, Palembang is very powerful. We're familiar with Singapore, with Penang, with Batawi, with Jakarta. There are places like Palembang, which is really potent in bringing this. This is a Jipen of Palembang. And I have here, sorry, I will try to play this for you. Look at the guys walking, they're pairing themselves up together, and 2 by 2s, they go in. Male only. They break up into modular units. You can see from this, they break up. Music-wise, it's very much Middle Eastern, with the lute, the oud. This is common. You can see it now, but you have to be invited into the homes of the Arab communities to see this and perform this with them. And this is very specific. The dressing style is very, very eclectic. It is the style of the Badaruddin Sultan, so it has a very specific style. So that is the style that you can see is happening, and this is one of the best group I brought from Palembang. And I really, really love this group. It's a very powerful group. They are all merchants. Their specialty, they sell their clothes, cloth and fabrics and stuff. So now, that's a bit of that one. This is the rest of it, but I have to go on because time will go. But I want to show you something here, which is, again, indigenous, and you find there's Randai is another wonderful work from West Sumatra, matrilineal society, very Islamic, very powerful, keeps the Sharia very closely interpretation-wise, but still, they have this wonderful tradition of men performing in circle, women performing in the inner circle. They do not mix. It's full of dancing, singing, and acting. Just one of these would be. That's one example. Lot of tapping, dancing, circle work. This can go on for hours and hours. This is another one tradition. Also, they become trans-Malay because it used to be just purely in the region of West Sumatra. It has moved across West Sumatra, being borrowed by various societies, Malay societies, and this has become very powerful. It's a circle dance, seated circle dance, chanting and clapping, almost like Saman in Aceh, but not standing up. Used to be just men only, but we have men and women performing, and you see this part show you how they perform without breaking the rules of legitimacy. They cross each other, they go up and down, they don't touch, never touching. If you touch, you break it. Okay, that's enough. I know there's a wow wow there, but yeah, I can't do anything. I'm supposed to give you the wow wow, you know. Okay, I won't do this one, but I want to do something because I think I got 2 more minutes. Am I correct? Yeah, I'm good at that. 2 more minutes. Okay, hurry up. Okay. I want to show you what is not said much again in the world of the Sulusis, and this is why Amina, I've shared a lot with Amina, but oh, but before we go there, I just want to show you how eclectic the tradition is. This is part of the Zapin. You see the lute here, which is now called the gambus. You see the harmonium that comes from India. This is the drum that is brought by the Portuguese, the strap drum. And this is the marawas or marawes. This is the hand drum that is, of course, brought from where else. I mean, nobody can create. This is the drum that is very Arabic. And what you see is, so have an idea why the woman has to sit down and be escorted by the men singing this tradition. And the gambus musician must be next to her. It elevates her position. Okay, that's one example. Finally, I've said just now, I'm going off to finally to this part where I'm going to close this section is very little has been talked about. And this is very interesting to me because the Sulusi is so huge and so large that people, I notice, the sharing of the tradition, you know, people in North Sulawesi has no idea about their brother and kins across the other part, you know. And but this is really from the Sulu, from the Kalibugan group, from the Yakana Basilan. This is from the Sama and the Tausuk, where Amina is, you know, this wonderful. But before we play, you notice that there's a very interesting gender placement. You find that the most powerful musician that makes it move and becomes are not men, they are women. Okay, men, you are only playing your gong, your agong or tawag, you know. It's the women who plays the melodic and ostinato, and they hold the rhythm. When the women hold the rhythm, it means the roh or the spirit is held in the hands of the women. Again, it goes back to very powerful pre-Islamic situation that is then put into Islamic perspective in it. Okay, you have a view of this before I'm shoved out of this space. So there are 3 women here. This is the tausuk. The man is beating on a bamboo beater. Sama and the yakai. And you can see the girl coming out to dance. Again, the girl predominates men. It's a beautiful movement, and there's a lot of work. You want to read this, you have to read another publication I have in the ICTM about how the women move and dance. This is the kind of work you see in the southern Philippines. Again, it is Islamic in the sense that it's not performed by non-Islamic communities, you know, and it's shared not only in Mindanao, in Sulu, in Basilan, but across to Borneo and across to North Sulawesi. Okay. I guess I have to end there. And just in short, well, I want to show you this one because you have to see how the dance is done. She doesn't want to come out. Shy. Look at the dress. I think if you want to ask, Amina could answer this. I mean, this is again a new invention of the costume. So you have certain paraphernalia that is traditional, but a lot of the works is the ornamentation is again this pan-Islamic and Renaissance thing that's happening, you know. So, and you see the movement of the woman is very controlled. It's not the very overt. It's very controlled. It's done purposely because it's supposed to be more Islamic than, you know. Okay, I'll end there and I'll see what question I can answer from you. Thank you very much.